The Admiral stood at the helm of the ESS Rash, Earth's flagship among the first interstellar battle group and envoys amongst the stars. She felt an overwhelming sense of relief and sadness and joy pounding the Badith ships relentlessly with the salvaged and ad hoc armaments. Watching them soundlessly break apart with muted fires and explosive decompressions brought all those emotions to the surface. She couldn't hold back the tears of all those various emotions welling up inside of her. She caught herself quickly, trying to hold them in check. She glanced around quickly to see if anyone had noticed, when she saw everyone else in the command module was doing the same thing. She became bold with resolve. A boundary was needed, a line set in stone that humanity was not a species that would roll over and die at any moment. "Comms, open a channel on all frequencies of all types of transmissions," she said sternly. She placed the headset microphone on her head and said, "We are the humans from the planet Earth. If you come in peace and friendship, we will greet you with peace and friendship. If you come with bad intentions, we will greet you with death." She then took the microphone off and set it back in its cradle. It had been 5 months since they set out on their journey, jumping from point to point, usually blindly, in search of their quarry. The fleet had left the Sol system with barely understanding the ships they left in and all their functions. However, humanity fell back on one of its greatest traits, adaptability. They began to quickly learn all of the non-vital systems, star charts, amenities and sensors that came with the myriad of alien technologies. They drilled daily, calling general quarters at random, doing launch and recovery, and the most surprising, maneuvering in space. Boggled some minds that one person's up is another person sideways. Artificial gravity generators made things very weird sometimes. All the crews began to work together as a cohesive unit for their assigned tasks, learning each other's behaviors and predictability. Even those who were deemed as contract people did not shirk their duties. With a few exceptions, very few people dodged the work that needed to be done. The Admiral meticulously planned the training regimen, various battle strategies in relation to being in space, down to the optimal firing sequence of every ship's energy weapons to conserve energy reserves for evasive measures. She created a standard operating procedure for first contact with outposts, alien vessels, homeworlds, and settlements, be them friendly, neutral, or hostile. The students of the Academy made fun of her and her name for her meticulous planning. She was going to be a naval officer, and when she set her sights on that goal, she achieved it, becoming the first female of a defense cruiser that always had some of the highest marks in the Navy. One of the things she could never have planned for was the Badith pirates. She never planned on being a widow and Veloma at 44. She never planned on volunteering for the first battle group ever to launch a hunt in deep, uncharted to human space. But she did, and she planned to annihilate those who destroyed her meticulously planned life. Surprisingly, hunting those that destroyed her became the easy part. When you ruin the lives of enough people or steal or cross enough people to where more than half of the local solar system would rather see you dead, beings across all planets are more than happy to tell complete strangers. When one outpost had been raided one too many times, their network of customers and staff would live update the Rash with messages coming in 1-minute intervals. When they had learned where the pirates had decided to cruise along at sublight speed, the Admiral enacted a plan they had all trained for with brutal success. The battle outside viewports had quickly subsided. Recall all craft, report any and all damage and casualties, and reform the battle group formation immediately, she said, pointing to the comms operators individually. Admiral, the only casualties are 2 thermal burns in the engineering and 1 corvid fighter has a hole in its wing. No damage to the capital ships, said the second comms operator. Good, all hands for recovery and repair, and reset to battle-ready status as soon as possible. I will be in my stateroom, if anything happens, come get me. Executive Officer Warren has the bridge. She was exhausted and drained. She had slept maybe 2 to 4 hours a day since launch. She could not remember the last time she showered or changed clothes. But all of that energy and motivation and planning popped like a balloon as soon as the pirates were obliterated. She no longer had to be the Admiral of the First Earth Space Fleet, she could just be Sora. On weary legs, she walked to her stateroom, opened the hatch, went through it and nearly collapsed turning the wheeled handle. Her normal routine of carefully placing her boots, her dirty clothes, etc. went right out the window as she kicked off her boots, walked out of her clothes, leaving a trail behind her. She turned on the hot water as hot as you can get aboard ship and sat underneath the flowing water, crying. Everything came out in one fell swoop. She sat in there until the water turned cold. Almost crawling out of there, she managed to put on pajamas and roll a flop into her rack. "Admiral," a voice shouted. Wake up." Sora blinked heavily, eyes still glossed over from the transition from dreams to reality. She said thickly, not knowing or caring if whoever woke her up spoke Japanese or not, and shuffled off to use the head restroom. She emerged minutes later with cold water that she had splashed on her face was still dripping down her cheeks. She recognized the person then as one of the duty officers from the command deck. "What is it, Lieutenant Eubanks?" she asked, chugging a glass of water. "A diplomatic envoy, and one who will speak only to you," said Lieutenant Eubanks. "Apparently, the message is for your eyes or ears only." "Are they being aggressive?" the Admiral asked. "No. They hailed us at the limits of our sensor range, and have made no movements, so we have about 150,000 kilometers or about 45 minutes before we arrive at their position. The translators and the translation matrix module both have confirmed the wording and that they mean no harm. Just a message." "Understood. I will be on the bridge in 20, the Admiral said wearily. "How long was I asleep, Lieutenant?" 14 hours. The Admiral looked slightly shocked at this, and then ushered the lieutenant out of her quarters. She sat down at her desk, groggily looking around for clean clothes and missing her rack. The Admiral arrived on the bridge and immediately hushed an ensign who tried to call attention on deck. She picked up the comms headset and spoke when the operator gave her the signal that the channel was open. "Diplomatic vessel, this is the Supreme Commander of this fleet of ships. Please state your intentions," she said, mustering her most commanding voice. "Hello Supreme Commander, I am Global Geeks, chosen representative of 6 interplanetary councils, representing 14 different primary races, 31 established and civilized worlds, and 227 settlements, outposts, colonies, and exploration stations. I wish to speak to you face-to-face as well as deliver some documents and technological specifications and knowledge as a gift. Global Jarks, we will turn our vessel's broadside towards your vessel. If you mean us harm, the full weight of our armaments will fire on you. Do you understand?" "I understand, Supreme Commander. You will approach our vessel slowly, with no changes in course or speed, do you understand?" "I understand. We heard what happened to your homeworld and wish no harm to come to you. Beginning drift +1 thrust, course locked in at 0 degrees, 0 deviation ±6, he paused, doing the calculations, of your centimeters. We will give further instructions once you have safely approached our vessel. Supreme Commander out." With that, the Admiral clicked off the switch cutting communications, and set the headset back. "Admiral, why that slow? We could hit that ship 10 times before it turned 90 degrees. This is going to take hours," asked Ensign Jacobs. "Ensign, please mind your borderline insubordinate, but you are young and impatient, so this once, I will answer your question." "Exactly," said the Admiral. "Military commanders and personnel are not usually very patient creatures, so the longer this takes, the more likely any hostile forces will become angry and be hasty. Also, this gives me time to actually see and eat from the mess instead of drinking coffee and instant soup on the bridge. All ships be ready for attack at any time. Let me know when he's within 5 kilometers." For the third time, for this entire time, Sora got to sit down and eat. For the first time, she was able to enjoy it. In fact, she had never been in the mess hall, ever. Aside from those on the bridge, most people did not even recognize her, or her rank. And honestly, it was fine with her. She had a delicious brunch consisting of pumpernickel toast, deep-fried catfish, apple slices and an alien vegetable they had picked up at an outpost that looked like a purple and orange leek, but tasted like bacon and almonds. I hope they were right and this is safe. I'd hate to die of brunch, she thought, giggling to herself a little. She decided to walk off the possibly devastating brunch and take a stroll around her ship. She had honestly seen very little of it occupied, having been cooped up at the bridge, in her office, or on the rare occasion, sleeping. She took her rank pins off of her collar and slid them in her pocket. Let's see who recognizes me. Let's see what happens when they're not all standing on ceremony, she thought, and decided to play this game. She wandered through some of the berthing areas, was denied, and rightly so without proper identification, to the ammunition storage and ship-to-ship cannon decks. The laboratory spaces were sterile and boring, maintenance was nowhere to be found in their workshops, which hopefully they were all off fixing equipment instead of gun decking and pencil whipping the logs. The hangar bay was very interesting, filled with the first space light attack craft, the Corvid Mk-2 and the reconnaissance and rescue craft, the Beagle. There was individual and community-built craft, as well. From the perfectly sane, diminutive versions of the larger ships or ships similar to those in the movies, to the ones whose owners should be institutionalized. That is not saying that all of the craft did not meet space-worthiness, or could not perform very well, it just meant the designs were a possible hazard to the pilot, his comrades, the enemy and their comrades as well. All these non-standard ships and their pilots were designated as contractors and had no rank, but no other responsibilities either. A few that were prior service were granted military ranks. She spotted the ship that had run down the Badith shuttle and kept their leader from escaping. She wanted a closer look at this extremely unique spacecraft. It had an extremely minimal cockpit, a beam cannon, a power supply system of some kind, and 6 massive engines. It was painted in an airbrushed scene of a demonic dog rising out of a pool of fire and lava, and in flowing script the words, Hellhound. A silver, tactical-looking motorcycle helmet sat on the headrest in the cockpit, the pilot seat apparently being a bright red and very stained, salvaged race car seat with a 5-point safety harness. 2 feet in worn work boots were hanging out from one of the engines. Sora wanted to know about this curious, fast and deadly junkyard and the madman who piloted it. She summoned her best American accent and went to talk to the feet. "Hi there. How's it going? Need a hand?" she said, trying not to let her accent give her away. "Nah, darling, I'm good," came the voice, with much less of a drawl than she had expected. "There's an inlet to antimatter plant that doesn't want to let anything but a trickle in." Antimatter, she thought, horrified. "How do you know it's antimatter?" she asked. "Well, it says it on the one side in a couple alien writings, antimatter generator, and then the atomic weight for element 336, and then something that works out to about 30 pounds worth of material." "Is that dangerous?" "Tell me what isn't anymore, sweetheart," he grunted. "Eating will kill ya, breathing will kill ya, swimming in the creek will kill ya, and don't forget having fiery chunks of an intergalactic chop shop rain down on ya." "True," she said, trying to keep up the accent without slipping. "So why did you build it like this?" "These were the parts that landed around me, so I just put them together. All these and a couple of other things were pretty close to me, so I put them together." "Wasn't hard," he said. "It wasn't hard," Sora exclaimed. "Well, an engine is an engine no matter who made it. Every engine needs a fuel. Now, whether it's an extension cord, a fuel line, or something, a power coupling is a power coupling. Same with a gun. Doesn't matter if it's a beam cannon or a shotgun, it needs ammo and a trigger. Everything everywhere is all the same if you think about it. That's very, thinking of a word other than reductive or simplistic, insightful. What do you think of our Admiral?" "What?" "Sorry, I couldn't hear that last part." "Our Admiral, Admiral Sora Tobo," she said. A raucous laughter erupted from the engine. The man's feet stomped against the engine nozzle cone in delight. "Sky Plod! Sky Plod! Holy Helen biscuits, That name suits her perfectly, he said laughing. I mean, she trains her people well, but she takes forever to plan or do anything. Still though, that damn funny. Well, what's your name? Maybe the Admiral might find yours funny, she said. She was annoyed by this, but also felt curious as to this man knowing more than 5 words in Japanese. Everyone calls me hillbilly. Mostly because of the German and American engineers. That kind of hillbilly engineering is Z's? He said, imitating an incredulous engineer. I'm not a true hillbilly, but I ain't Ivy League either. Mostly just poor and know how to use what I got to make something I need. Hun. What's your real NA? Admiral Tobo. Admiral Tobo. Please contact the bridge, came over the ship-wide speakers. I have to run. Nice chatting, hillbilly, she said, running quickly towards a phone. Her accent dropped as she said it. Hillbilly tried to look out of engine only to see a white uniformed figure running away, a black-haired bob cut bouncing with each step. Nah, it couldn't have been. The Admiral put her collar devices back on and ran into the nearest aircrew's maintenance shack. She flung open the door, stunning all the junior enlisted and NCOs. There was a pause as they all tried to recognize her rank on her collar devices. She spotted a phone on a desk covered with parts and papers and dashed to it. Attention on deck, said one airman, finally recognizing her rank. All of them shot up immediately, standing at a very embarrassed attention. She gave them a disapproving look at how long it took them to recognize her rank and motioned them to return to what they were doing as she dialed the bridge. This is Rash Actual, go ahead bridge. Actual, the ship is within 5 kilometers. She covered the mouthpiece of the phone. Where's the best place to put a possibly dangerous ship? She said hastily to maintenance crew. Isolation Hangar 3. That's in case of unexploded ordnance in a vehicle. Bridge, please guide it to Isolation Hangar 3, muster the Sec DT to meet me there, weapons hot, she said hastily, hanging up the phone. You, she said, pointing at a chief petty officer, guide me there as fast as possible. The chief knew something important was going down and quickly headed for the hatch. The Admiral followed immediately behind him, the pair darting across the hangar deck, through a hatch in the bulkhead, and down a passageway. Make a hole. Flatten out, the chief kept yelling as they quickly made their way down the passageway. People flattened themselves against the bulkheads, allowing the pair to pass by fairly unimpeded. They zigzagged through the passageways, and down a ladderwell to the blast-proof, sealed hatch leading to Isolation Hangar 3. The Admiral typed in the code and 2 sets of thick doors opened, one vertically, one horizontally, to reveal a standard hatch. The chief slammed the handle of the hatch, opening it. The Admiral walked into a U-shaped viewing room that had 20 centimeters thick walls and 20 centimeters thick glass, with 2 sets of pressurized blast doors on either side of the wall, and several microphones and telephones on both sides of the wall. The security detachment filed into the viewing room minutes behind the Admiral. The hangar bay doors were opened already and awaiting their guest. Chief, she said solemnly, if this goes sideways or there is any sort of NBC threat, I want you to hit the purge and seal that's on the bulkhead. Remove the safety pin, pull the lever down and hit the 2 red buttons simultaneously. It will open the hangar doors, blow us into space, immolate the room and then do a chemistry and rad wash. Do not hesitate. That's an order. Yes, he said. The alien craft slowly entered the hangar bay, extended for landing gear and settled onto the deck with a thump. The hangar doors closed and the bay was repressurized with air. The ship was white-silver with orange landing lights. It was very box-shaped, with no external weaponry that they could tell, and was not very big, but very bulky. The pilot disappeared from the cockpit, and the human contingent painstakingly waited for whatever was going to happen next. 2 points appeared on the hull, looking like Mercury, and quickly traced out the shape of 2 doors. Those 2 doors pushed outwards and then to the sides, parallel with the hull. A figure in a suit and helmet jumped out of the craft carrying 2 small boxes. The suit itself was white silver with an orange faceplate on the helmet and piping in a metallic orange color. The pilot stepped away from the craft and waited patiently. The Admiral waited a few seconds before opening the 4 blast doors and entering the bay. The security detail filed in behind her with the chief watching intently from the back. The blast doors closed automatically behind them. She approached closer to Global Jarks, the orange tint showing a being that looked part fox and part fruit bat. He was about 1.5 m tall and very thin. It was bipedal, but its arms were disproportionately longer than its legs. A stubby, thick tail protruded from the back of the suit, encased in the white-silver material. "Greetings, Admiral Soratobo of Earth and humans. I regret we cannot have this conversation actually face-to-face, but I cannot breathe your rust, burning, catalyzed, translation device was apparently malfunctioning, oxygenated gases that you can breathe. In this box are the documents for your governing officials to read, understand, and if so, agree to the terms of joining our collective of councils. In this one are the technical specifications and details for building hyperspace communication buoys that can transmit communications through subspace and hyperspace for near-instantaneous communications up to 10 light-years away. These are gestures of good faith." He set them on the deck and backed away. "Thank you, Global Jarks, for being patient with us. Why does these councils want us to join them? Because in 2,500 cycles, we haven't seen a race rebound so quickly and with such adaptability. Your warlike nature disturbs us, but we also see it as reasonable given your recent experiences. You approached outposts with caution and goodwill and have not fired upon those who have not taken the lives of your own," he stated matter-of-factly. "We will deliver these to our government after we have checked them, and deliver notice to you once they have agreed or disagreed to the terms." "Understood. May I depart your vessel?" Global asked. "Yes, you may. Travel at your drift +1 for 3 of our kilometers and then you may depart at whatever speed you choose," said the Admiral. She motioned for security to grab the boxes as Global Jarks returned to his ship. 2 security officers grabbed the boxes as the whole contingent backed out of the room, sealing the blast doors behind them. The hangar bay doors opened and Jarks backed out ever so carefully before spinning his ship 180 degrees and began his slow journey away from the rash. "Call the other security detail and have them bring 2 bomb disposal containers, call medical for an NBC check of ourselves and sweep the area," barked the Admiral. "Do you think they're legitimate?" asked the chief. The Admiral shrugged. "We will see. If these check out, we will be going home." Global Jarks did as he was told and sped away after the marked distance. He made a quick FTL jump, and then returned to sublight speeds. He flicked on a communicator. Yes, everything has been delivered. They could be the greatest boon or the worst enemy. If they do not join us, we must destroy them in their cradle.